This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and Anthea Vella. Brought to you by Sit and Cards.
How's Terry?
What a final match for the year. Almost like a microcosm of the whole Buck year, in that in the final analysis, no matter how much we fall in love with Tony Ball or the idea of a super attack, it does come down to power and speed, power and pace, power up front and pace out wide. And it also was a kind of a microcosm that Andre Pollard showed us that he's a power crash ball 12 as well. And that in the end, as well, almost everything good from Buckland, Buck Rugby has and will always be from that power, from that first setting rock, from the scrum that was insane. And we're not, no matter what, we're not geared to easily score 75 points or 60 points against a team that we probably should. I always think that it's actually about the structure and the fundamentals that always sees us home. But good fun, really, really good. Happy as hell to see Jordan Hendricks slide in for that try. A nightmare debut, and that can sometimes kill a career. It can sometimes just, you always lack confidence. He didn't. I thought he kicked really well. His line kicking was really good. I like the fact they brought on Andre and said, you play 12 next to him, because that's kind of a cool vote of confidence. So I know everyone's want to talk about Hanekom, but he didn't get that many chances for a game that was fractured and open. Part of it is when it gets that frenetic and it just lacks shape. One of the best rugby statisticians in the world is Russ Petty, so follow him on socials. And he always has insights instead of just using the same olds. But I saw him capture at 1 hour, the Box had broken 43 tackles. Just as a benchmark, like a good game, you break 6 or 7. That's 43. So it's almost like the first line of defense was always so fractured that I saw Cam kind of hanging back. He also had to clean rucks, which he did very well, but he didn't have as many chances. His first carry out of the box was really good. He broke the line, he broke tackles, he had an extra burst because no one held him. But I think he will go back and see a few times where he could have positioned himself more in the view of the 9 to catch the ball and go. But overall, you had guys like Gasper Visa who stayed on. So you had an interesting combination of Sia and Visa and Hanekom. Yeah, it was a strange one. It wasn't one we drew up. And then you had, the man mountain, the man of the match, and what a deserved win for Sos Mostert. I love his post-match interview. He's so shy. And he just, he just says, I must say. He just says, I must say. It doesn't say anything. And I love that. I love that he said it was 2 individual against England and that there was a team approach. Listen, I don't know if anyone out there has ever been in deep sea and diving and you get the bends. And it's all about the depth. South Africa has so much depth right now that we're getting the bends. It's like unbelievable competition at every position. 3 deep, 4 deep. There's some positions that are 5 deep. There's some exceptions, but it looks like there's never been a time in Buck Rugby where the succession planning has been so elaborate, so sophisticated, so far ahead of all the rivals, including Ireland. The only team that has any depth comparative really is France. But it's better planned than the French. There's no one grumpy, no one going home when they're not picked, no one with a pouty face. Everyone's playing their roles, happy to come on. Gibbon walks off early. You don't worry because you've got the Viking. In general, I think it's very.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones.
You've won at 50 minutes. You already know that. And you could almost try to do too much. You fall out of shape. Tony Ball is not chaos ball. It actually is quite intricately arranged, and it needs those arrangements, and it needs pullbacks at the right moment, and it needs people floating into the flats to get the ball. And that wasn't really there because everyone was breaking their tackles so much. There were so many breaks. There were so many leckerbacks wriggling. And there were guys like Visa breaking tackles for fun that it was actually quite difficult to know where your support lines were. So in the first half, it was easier for a guy like Ivan or Franco to know where they're going, to catch that on the support. In the second half, it was really one of the strangest. If you were drawing it up, it would be an unusual game. Wales was just, shame. They were bless their heart. They were trying their best, and nobody. I don't think many Welsh players should walk off the field feeling disgraced. They were 30-point underdogs, and they lost by 30 plus points. Although I was sweating a little bit because I think I was live on a show saying that, bet the house, bet the bucky, bet the kids 30 points margin, and it was getting close at the end. I think it came out 33.
Yeah, we had some people on our chat there on net specifically wanted a 50 point margin. I thought she was a bit optimistic. I actually thought we were going to do better in that second half. I think we were a bit underwhelming. We seemed a bit more disjointed with all the replacements coming on. Cameron going to 7 first and then moving to 8 when Yasser went off, and that was an interesting a couple of moves there, wasn't it? I mean, what happened when Marco came on? Marco went to 6. What happened to 7? Who played at 7? I didn't notice.
Well, I think the answer is that no one played in proper roles. The only setup that I thought that actually worked quite well was the Maul defense was pretty good. But in general play, I mean, the scrum was great. But in general play, it didn't seem like people did know what number and role they were in. And that's part of the problem. By when John went down and Ibn came into the starting line out, and then we had Marco as the replacement lock, I think it kind of threw off some of the planning and that can happen if it's a late change. But let's actually say what really happened here. In the first 10 minutes of the second half, the Wales were good, and they fought a rear guard action. What is that thing about war? If you can fight really well in retreat, you can live to fight another day. So they really did a good job of fighting a rear guard action, of not making it easy. I don't know what happened in those first 10 minutes exactly. I haven't gone back and looked at the stats, but it looked like a different sort of game. So then everything got shortened. Then you only had 30 minutes to go. You had some changeovers. All match long, there were opportunities that were not taken here and there. But look, long season, final match, really cold in Cardiff. Did a job, beat the bookmakers' odds of 30. I think it was 30 for most people. Look, it's hard to quibble too much. I also think that a lot of that was getting home healthy, and being able to look at the season as a whole. And then, the most important season in this cycle is 2025, not this year. This year it could have been 9 wins. It'd been okay. The fact that it's 11 wins and that for the most part it was comfortable, even when not playing that well, is a testament to the depth and the forethought. So I think now it's 2025 looms very large, because this is when Rassie says he's going to truncate his squad, draw in a little bit. The rotations are going to be smaller and more injury driven as opposed to experimental. And I think one thing we could say is that Jordan Hendricks has thrust himself into the conversation. And there was that moment where the chip went over the top by his brother. You're just aching for that to work. So when he got his try late, it was really nice to see. He's a strong body type, actually. I kind of watched him play at club level, but I thought at test level he looked big and strong enough. And he did some stuff that really, I think translates. And the fact that he's such a good striker of the ball, which means that his misses will be close, like, Andre's misses where you go, it almost made it, as opposed to really missing. That also makes the coaches more confident. Besides that, I thought Elrich Lowe probably had one of the top seasons for the people that are in the second echelon. I think he ends this season 100% confident of what the coaches see in him and how he can play. And then Don Human, take a bow. There's never been a better fucking scrum coach than him.
People are
Come on,
joking
man.
about you catching me out if you're swearing, Harry.
Sorry, but I mean, I just don't know how you can be a better scrum coach. I don't know how you can be a better scrum coach. He can pull off scrum dominance with any set of characters. You've seen the videos of him climbing around on people's backs. He's got ropes, he's got ladders, he's got pommel horses. I think they train with like, suits of armor. I don't know what he's doing in there, but he is a creative. Don't let the Plas guy fool you with this kind of homespun wit and no, just do a little bit of scrumming here and there. He's thinking out of the box, and give him a double raise.
You know what I noticed that specifically, I've mentioned to you many times when I was at Loftus, that it struck me that Gerard Steenekamp is not such a big guy. But when I saw him tonight, he's put on some weight, some serious weight. He's gone big, if you want to talk about that now. Did you notice that?
Yeah, he is interesting. He's an interesting guy because he looks different every time I see him. Almost like every month there's a new iteration of Gerard Steenekamp. Is not just his hairstyles, which also change a lot, and his beard lengths, but he's just a different guy all the time. I think he's the kind of guy, a bit like Malcolm Marx, that he can really deviate in weight, and he looks like a different fellow, depending on what that looks like. Some people gain or lose weight like Sneeman, and you never really see the difference, but he definitely is bigger now, but it still looks like a lanky guy. Steenkamp is an interesting guy. He's an interesting athlete. I wasn't that convinced of him at first. And obviously he still has things to learn. But he's a proper test animal. I mean, he plays like a beast. And I also think that he's really quick off the floor. And tonight was a victory for people like that. Mostert, Etzebeth, Steenkamp, Delende. People were really quick off the floor. Second engagements, third engagements in some situations. There's not much you can actually analyze from a victory like this, though, when it's 30 points and if you really buckled down and you were proper, it would be much bigger.
One thing I want to just briefly talk about Wales. Their defense was next level. They picked up something about how to counter us. I mean, they fought till the bitter end. Let's give them that credit. And they fought cleverly, I thought. What did you think?
Yeah, and I think there's certain kinds of rugby that works better against Wales than ours. I think our stuff obviously works against Scotland better than most other people. Scotland's a really good team, but they just seem to not be able to score tries for two tests in a row. None, like naught. So Wales loses to the Boks, but not as much as they should. Pretty much every time. I mean, you just always look every single Wales South African team match. You go, that's weird. We should have won by 50.
Oh, well, that's 100 years of rivalry. That's what it does for you, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're good at negating things. You have teams that are much better at like in the sport of tennis is a great example. You can have a great serve returner who will show up better. And Andy Murray, a backboard. Rafael Nadal, recently retired, he can be better against a big server than someone else who's a big server. So you run in these matchups all the time in rugby where you know that if the Wallabies go against Wales, they can run up a score almost better than they should. But there's no one's thinking if the Wallabies play the Boks that it's going to be that way. It's just a matchup issue. That being said, you look at the Wallabies going to play Scotland and you go, I'm not sure it's going to work because your defense is so porous that Finn Russell and Hugh Jones and Sione Tupoloto are going to run riot, whereas you don't think that by the Boks. So I do think there's a lot of things about the Welsh Springbok matchup where it's almost always this way, which is funny to say when someone loses by 33 points, but it still looked like at 20 minutes you wondered, this might be a cricket score.
Yeah, I thought so. I actually said to Andre Pretorius, I was WhatsApping him and we were talking and I said, it's cricket score coming. And he still said, watch, it's too early to call it. So he was right. Just briefly about France last night. I said France was going to make it. France was going to beat Argentina and they did convincingly. What's your thoughts on that team, just briefly compared to the South African team? Any? For me, that's probably the two best teams in the world at the moment, not Ireland.
Yeah, the French had a good autumn. I had an exchange online yesterday about the French attitude towards the New Zealand tour, which is, kind of slipshod. We're not happy about it. The rest of us want to see, because you think like that's such a wonderful autumn. They look good. Why don't they go down and renew that rivalry with New Zealand? With 3 matches, it'd be brilliant. And the French fans engaged thoroughly in their second language, and they talked about how the Six Nations and the club championships, the top 14, and the European Challenge, it's everything to them. They talked about it in less of like diminishing what they call friendlies, and even though they don't agree with us when we say there's no friendlies in rugby, I see their point that they really do love their competitions at home and then with the Six Nations more than we sort of understand. We don't have a love affair with the Rugby Championship that much. We just like playing the All Blacks. And as much as we do like our Curry Cup, we know that we're not seeing the upper echelon of our players a lot. Whereas in Pro D2 and Top 14, they're really seeing their best players sprinkled with the best of other teams. And so it's actually different. I think it's interesting to say who had the best autumn. In some ways, you could say the French did. And then in some ways, you could say that the Springboks story fits into the larger story of the best year post-World Cup winning, a remarkable test of resilience and depth and adaptation to the new sets of laws. I think the French and the Springboks really did have a better adaptation to the escort rules, the kick rules, and the no guard rules. They have a really big, active, athletic pack who can block kicks or threaten to block kicks, and both teams have incredible speed, live wire speed at the back 3, and also both teams know how they want to play, so they haven't had to reform everything. They're kick chasers. I mean, Louis Biel-Berets, you would see him playing for the Springboks and be fine. Like he looks like a Lekkerback, and so does what's his name, Gavin Villiers. Yeah. You look at those two guys, and you swap, or you put KLA and Colby on the French team. They're fine too. So there's that. I think it's interesting, the balance of both teams. You would love to have like a final match at the end of the Autumn Nation series where it was clearly the best Northern team and against the best Southern team. That would be fun.
Isn't that what the club championship is going to be in 2026?
That's the dream, right? And I know everyone's going to say player welfare. We have to make sure that our seasons don't just rag people out. And I get that. So I think the solution to that is to really watch minutes during the season. But culminations, finales are the best thing in sports. Like, we want things to build to a crescendo, whether you're talking about Formula One, a long tour, Grand Slams, the big golf majors. You want to have big events. And so, I think what's missing is that. So maybe that's what we're going to get. Final thoughts I also have is it's really nice to see a happy Springbok team. It's really nice to see happy Braai Nation going to every city. It's really great to see the fans enjoying. I like now that the Springbok fans are universally regarded as really fun group. We have a little work to do to be as fun maybe as the Scots or whatever. But I mean, in terms of like what it used to be like, that we were too reserved or not enough fun or a little bit too much into the rugby. I feel like there's a really beautiful atmosphere now. A lot of different groups being welcomed into rugby, and these kind of moments are particularly good. Where you look at the South Africans in Edinburgh or Cardiff or London, they're having so much fun, so much camaraderie, so many friendships built across the national lines, and people that will say, no, come back next time, see you in 2 years, come back to Cardiff. And that's what's always made rugby different and better than sports like football. You don't have to separate us. We can go to the same beer lines. We're hugging, we're trading numbers. We're good.
All right, I'll spend another hour, but let's save that for this week. Monday, we're going to start talking and do a bit of a post-mortem, season post-mortem, I would think, of the Springboks. But I think that's probably the best approach.
Sounds good, man.
All right, thanks, Harry. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Enjoy talking to you.
Cheers.
Man. Cheers.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and Effie Vella.